All right, let's talk about it, because this one hurt in a way that's hard to explain unless you actually watched it. A 13-3 loss to Seattle, no touchdowns, no NFC West title, no #1 seed. It just felt wrong from the start. You sit down thinking this is going to be a statement game, a chance to lock everything up, and instead, you're watching 3-and-outs, stalled drives, and a scoreboard that never really moves in your favor. It wasn't just a loss. It was one of those games where you're left staring at the screen thinking, how did it get this bad? What makes it sting even more is how uncharacteristic it was. This offense has been putting up points, moving the ball, finding answers all season, and suddenly it looked stuck in mud. No touchdowns the entire night. Let that sink in. This is the fewest points a Kyle Shanahan-coached team has ever scored. Not in a rebuilding year, not in a disaster season, but right now, with everything on the line. Losing the NFC West is one thing, but losing it like this is what really messes with your head as a fan. And I know you felt it too, that moment when you realize this might actually slip away. Maybe it was another 3-and-out. Maybe it was the interception in the red zone. Maybe it was watching Seattle just methodically move the ball while the 49ers couldn't find any rhythm at all. For me, it was that sense that nothing was coming easy, and nothing was being fixed as the game went on. If you had that same feeling, let me know in the comments. Was there one specific play where you thought, yeah, this is going to be a long night? Before we go any further, make sure you're subscribed and notifications are on. We're pushing toward 1,000 subscribers, and if you're riding with this team through wins and losses, this channel is for you. And if this game frustrated you as much as it frustrated me, hit the like button so more 49ers fans can find this breakdown. Now, here's the important part. As ugly as this was, this isn't the end of the season. It feels heavy right now, and it should, but the playoffs are still there. The path just got a whole lot harder. And to understand how we got here, you have to start with the offense, because what we saw from that unit was shocking. That's where we're going next. What makes the offensive performance even harder to process is just how bad the numbers actually were. This wasn't one of those games where it felt ugly, but you still moved the ball a little. Statistically, this was as rough as it gets. The 49ers finished with just over 100 yards through 3 quarters, the fewest this offense has had in any game under Kyle Shanahan. Brock Purdy averaged almost no air yards in the first half, barely pushing the ball downfield at all. There was one pass thrown beyond 5 yards for a long stretch of that game. That's not the identity of this offense, and that's why it was so alarming to watch. From the opening drive, Seattle made it clear what their plan was. Pressure Purdy, take away the edges, and force everything to happen inside. They weren't going to let him roll out and create. They weren't going to let Christian McCaffrey beat them to the perimeter. And the worst part is, it worked. McCaffrey was bottled up, the run game never got going, and suddenly every third down felt impossible. 3-and-out after 3-and-out. And with each one, you could feel the momentum slipping further away. The red zone interception was the moment that really twisted the knife. That's the play that flips the game. If that drive ends in a touchdown, everything changes. The crowd tightens up. The pressure swings back to Seattle, and suddenly, it's a different night. Instead, the ball gets picked, the air goes out of the building, and you're back to watching the defense head right back onto the field. If you're being honest with yourself, that was probably the moment you started thinking this might not end well. A lot of fans are going back and forth on where to place the blame, and I want to ask you directly. Do you think this was more about Seattle's defense, or more about the 49ers offense failing to adjust? Comment defense or offense and let me know where you land. For me, it's a mix of both. Seattle deserves credit because they were relentless, but the play calling felt conservative, basic, and out of rhythm. It didn't look like Brock Purdy was being put in great positions to succeed, and it didn't look like the offense ever found a counter punch. And yet, even with all of that, the game was still there for the taking. That's what makes it so frustrating. The defense kept it close long enough for the offense to wake up, and it just never happened. If this game had you shaking your head the entire night, make sure you like the video, because you're definitely not alone. As bad as the offense was, though, it wasn't the only reason this game slipped away. The defense has its own story in this loss, especially when it comes to stopping the run and dealing with injuries. And that's where we need to go next. As frustrating as the offense was, the defense is where this game slowly slipped from survivable to unwinnable. Early on, they did just enough to keep the score close, bending but not completely breaking. Holding Seattle to field goals felt like a small win at the time. But when you keep putting your defense back on the field over and over again, eventually something gives. And in this game, it was the run defense. Seattle ran the ball whenever they wanted. 5 yards here, 6 yards there, 7 yards there. It didn't matter if it was first down, third and short, or even third and long. That 3rd and 17 conversion was brutal, and it perfectly summed up the night. You get Seattle into a spot where you should be getting off the field, and instead, they gash you again. Those plays drain the life out of a defense and completely flip momentum. A huge part of this comes down to injuries. Not having Fred Warner changes everything. He's the one lining everyone up, communicating, taking the right angles, and cleaning things up when plays break down. Without him, the defense looked disjointed. Add in no Nick Bosa, problems setting the edge, and suddenly the run lanes are wide open. When you can't set the edge, you can't blitz, and when you can't blitz, you're just hoping the offense makes a mistake. Seattle didn't. There's been a lot of talk about Robert Saleh after this game, and I think it needs context. Did he call a perfect game? No. But it's hard to be aggressive when you're missing your best players, and your defensive line depth is stretched thin. Bryce Huff isn't supposed to be playing this many snaps. He's a situational pass rusher, not an every-down guy. The plan coming into the season wasn't for him to carry this kind of load. Injuries forced the issue, and the cracks finally showed. Let me ask you this. Do you think the defense lost this game more than the offense did? Yes or no? Drop it in the comments, because I'm curious where you stand. Personally, I think the defense held on as long as it could, but once the run game started bleeding them out, there was no margin for error left. And that's the part that hurts the most. This wasn't some dominant Seattle performance where the 49ers never had a chance. The game was right there, even with all the mistakes. But injuries and depth issues don't show up all at once. They pile up quietly, and then one night, they catch up to you. And that brings us to the missing pieces in this game, because there were a lot of them, and they mattered more than people want to admit. When you step back and really look at this game, it's impossible to ignore how many key pieces were missing, or limited, because it completely changed what the 49ers could and couldn't do. The absence of Trent Williams alone is massive. He's not just another offensive lineman, he's the foundation of the entire offense. Without him, protections break. Down faster, Brock Purdy feels pressure sooner, and the playbook shrinks whether you want it to or not. You could see it on almost every drive. There was no comfort, no clean pocket, no ability to let plays develop. Then there's Ricky Pearsall. When he's on the field, he stretches defenses, creates space, and gives Brock another reliable option. When he's not, everything tightens up. Defenses don't have to respect the same vertical threat, and suddenly, windows close quicker. It's frustrating, because you know how much he could have helped in a game where the offense desperately needed a spark. And that frustration grows when availability keeps becoming part of the conversation. At some point, being good when you're on the field isn't enough if you're not on the field when it matters most. The wide receiver situation overall just felt thin. You're looking at lineups and realizing how much this team was scraping by. No disrespect to the guys out there competing, but this was not the version of the offense anyone envisioned for a game with the division and the #1 seed on the line. Even on defense, the linebacker situation became almost surreal. Injuries stacking on top of injuries, guys going in and out, communication breaking down. That's not something you can just scheme around. And this is where fans start pointing fingers at the front office, at roster construction, at the trade deadline. Those conversations are fair, but they're also complicated. This team didn't give up. They didn't quit. They were just limited. There's a difference. Let me ask you this. Which absence hurt more in this game? Trent Williams or Ricky Pearsall? Drop your answer in the comments, because I think that tells you a lot about how you view this loss. Even with all of that, the most important thing is this. This team is still in the playoffs. The path is harder, no question about it, but it's still there. They've won on the road before. They've faced adversity before. And whether this loss becomes the start of something ugly or just a painful detour depends on how they respond next. That's what we need to talk about to close this out. Because as bad as tonight felt, the season isn't over yet. Here's the reality. Even though it doesn't feel good to hear right now, this loss hurts, but it doesn't erase what this team is capable of. The road just got tougher, and there's no sugarcoating that. Going 3 the hard way means no margin for error, no safety net, and probably no comfort. But this team has been in hostile environments before and found ways to win. That hasn't changed, even after a night like this. What this game really felt like was everything catching up at once. Injuries, depth issues, and a bad night of execution all collided in the worst possible moment. It doesn't mean the 49ers suddenly forgot how to play football. It means they got punched hard, and now we find out who they really are. Sometimes a loss like this becomes the wake-up call that refocuses a team. Other times, it exposes flaws that can't be fixed. The response is what matters. I still believe if this team plays Seattle again, or almost anyone else in the NFC, the offense scores more than 3 points. This felt like a weird, ugly outlier where nothing clicked. That doesn't excuse it, but it also doesn't define the entire season. There's talent in that locker room. There's experience. And there are leaders who understand what's at stake. Now, I want to hear from you. Do you still believe this team can make a playoff run? Yes or no? Be honest in the comments. And while you're there, tell me who you want to see them face first. Every matchup is going to be tough, but some feel better than others. If you're still riding with this team, make sure you're subscribed and help us push toward 1,000 subscribers. We're going to be covering everything from here on out. Injuries, matchups, adjustments, all of it. And if you made it through this whole breakdown, hit the like button. Losses like this are easier to get through when you talk them out with other fans.